With Nightmare 300 coming up on its first week, the meta is already clearly changing and leaderboard times are already being set. In this video, we're going to be kind of going over the state of the meta, what current leaderboards are looking like, and my thoughts on what is currently happening with Bloodhunt, and what I think the direction forward should be kind of going forward. And to kind of start things off, hello, my name is Raid Dad. I was the previous rank 1 in the previous patch of Bloodhunt for solo Punny and for the quad side for a little bit of time. And on the current runs that I've been doing all the groups between solos, duos, trios, and quads. And at least for what I'm seeing right now, I just kind of want to go into the direction that I'm seeing that Bloodhunt's currently taking. So go ahead and sit on back and we'll get into the video. To get into the current state of the leaderboard where it's at now, we have to kind of talk about where the leaderboard was previously and what Bloodhunt was originally kind of intended for. So on the Nightmare 120 levels, to kind of start, we had our full roster of say 6 characters between Thor, Squirrel, Punny, Blade, Moon Knight, and Jeff. Now, when we were first all grinding these levels, you know, a lot of the characters were viable at that time, and at least there were a little bit more options to what we were able to do. You know, Thor had a little bit kind of, you know, Thor was toned down in the beginning, but really the outliers kind of going forward were Moon Knight, and, you know, we had Jeff there for a bit too. And at least on the first runs of say the 120, Moon Knight was the clear contender for everything, and you know, everyone kind of felt like there was at least something that you can kind of do with them. Things were fresh, you know, we were all learning everything, and we were kind of just pushing forward on everything. But when 160 started to hit and the 200 levels, things were kind of changed around a bit. The first thing to kind of change was, you know, Jeff had a little bit of a buff there for about 2 days until he got shadow nerfed into oblivion, and then ever since that happened, Jeff was just not viable at that point from just what I've kind of seen on all of my runs these last couple months. And then after that, Moon Knight was kind of took him behind the shed, and you know, he just hasn't really been too viable ever since. For the current meta for Moon Knight, from what we've seen, you know, previous meta was him flying around on Delta Express and, you know, having the time of his life. And then he went to, you know, Bruce Lee and, you know, was, I guess, or maybe more Mike Tyson, maybe just kind of doing his little melee builds going forward. And it did feel like towards the end of Nightmare 200 that there was potential for a boss Moon Knight, to where he'd be able to kind of gather enemies and stack the boss damage. And at least nowadays, it does feel like maybe there could be something there for melee Moon Knight, but really at the end of the day, he's just kind of not really all that viable either. And then with the Nightmare 200 roster of Thor, Squirrel, Blade, and Punny, on the 200 side, for a while there, you know, I'd reached rank 1 with the Punny side of solo Punny, 2 Thor, 1 Squirrel, and then we were able to reach the sub 5-minute time of duo Punny setup with the double shotgun, and we were still able to push times down quite a bit. And on Blade side, we all saw the end result on the Blade times, but essentially we were getting to the double Blade setup with the Thor and a Squirrel Girl. But at the end of the day, it still felt like there was at least something that we could do to where we would have a mob clear, tank vuln, and some type of boss clear at the end of the day. But kind of getting up to the current events of the Nightmare 300, it's really not working right now. But we'll touch up on that on the next chapter here going forward. Now that the ceiling has been raised to Nightmare 300, the meta has changed quite a bit. But to kind of figure out why, let's go ahead and touch up on the patch that was recently released on the 23rd. So with the release on the newest patch on Bloodhunt, we had gear enhancement, gear refining, a Dew of Insight, and Nightmare difficulty being expanded to 300. With gear refining, we can change one of our stat pieces on our gear to an S rank on, within limitations of the refining. But it does open up our build possibilities a lot more. And then on top of that, or on to top that off, we have gear enhancement now, which will increase our gear up to plus 10. And then we'll also pick one of your stats that isn't an S rank and bump that up to S on top of that too. So with the new refining and forging essentially on Blood Hunt, what you really need is 3 S ranks that you can use, along with a low stat on another stat you can use, and then 1 that you can reroll. And with that, it opens up the possibility on our builds a bit more. But in doing so, it did change the meta on the 300 side quite a bit. So if we start going into the leaderboard side here, we can, what you'll be kind of seeing is the screenshots that are the current ranks for, quads, trios, duos, and solos. But to kind of touch up on everything on the 4 stacks here, 3 Thors. And, with chatting with a lot of the Thors and doing a run of my own too, of, being the score girl of a 3 Thor setup, the meta as it stands now is we're kind of seeing 2 ranged Thors with a boss Thor. And, previously we could kind of get through with either 1 or 2 Thors and we kind of be able to do the wave clear as long enough the boss clear was good enough. But with how much damage and it has been scaled for Thor, and with how they're kind of doing their wave clears nowadays, the kind of one of the optimal ways of doing it is by finding a large map of, say, like train station or something that has multiple spawn points of, say, 5, and having, your 3 Thors be able to clear that as quick as possible, and, be able to clear the elites on, say, waves 3 and wave 4. And if you can get quick enough clear times with on big maps essentially now, so that you can spawn more enemies and get the time down quicker on survivable, then you have enough firepower with the boss Thor and the other 2 Thors to where you can melt boss wave, quick enough to where, even though it's going to be slower than, say, a dedicated boss killer, it's going to be, as we can clearly see here with the current time of 426, that there's just really no way of kind of getting around it. And with testing that I've done today, I've tried both AR and both shotgun variants to as pretty much as close as good enough builds as you're going to get on Punny. And on the shotgun test today, it was just not quick enough on being able to try to melt, we had tried like a variation of Rat and Drac, and even with that, it just didn't feel like the melt time was going to be, quick enough. And when it comes down to shotgun versus AR, it feels like the meta's changed to where AR is actually the more viable of the two when it comes to squad play. Because as I'm going to be kind of showing here, the melt potential of AR is just so phenomenal that it just doesn't feel like we're going to be able to get anything better. And at least when it comes to blades and, some of the blades that I've talked to, it just feels like that with the potential and consistency of AR, that even a comparison of, boss versus boss, it just, the blade ult, as it is good, you have kind of 2 things that could potentially alter the results. The first thing is you need to have Blade set up with his ult, so you need some type of initial burst to be able to kind of get through that initial part, whether that's stacking healthy on Blade so that way he can kind of do it himself, or having, like, say, a Punny as the second boss killer to have that initial melt for him to set up his ult for the, kind of the finisher. But with how it is now, if you don't either have that or if Blade kind of misses his ult, or if bosses move out of the ult, there's just so much inconsistency. And even on some of the top Blades that I've talked to, they're saying like around 5 seconds for double boss clear time. Is you're probably seen with the video, the AR Punny is just it can just melt drastically on set with the right conditions. So at least on a boss versus boss variant. It just feels like Punny is really outshining this patch. But even with all of that, on some of the top times that we were seeing, I think the tests that we're showing today for shotgun were around the, let's see if we can actually pull it up here. So it looks like my fastest time right now is a 4:46 is what I was kind of pulling a couple days ago. And even with that, I think that was a AR time, and that was kind of on the more optimal scenarios. So if push came to shove with the data that I saw on shotgun, it doesn't feel like there's just enough melt potential for the previous setups that we're doing. You know, I'll keep testing to see if there's something I can do down the line, but on first impressions, it just doesn't feel like shotgun's just kind of up to the task. Whereas with this AR run of 4:46, it does feel like there might be like the slightest bit of potential of being able to reach top times, but to be able to reach rank 1, I don't know if I can definitively say as previous, you know, with Nightmare 200 runs, you know, for there I was more of able to do it. Whereas with this patch, it's just we're seeing the data. It's triple Thor, 1 Squirrel Girl, and then that's just kind of the meta going forward. And with that, just we have to have something change for the survivability of this mode, and we'll touch upon that on the next chapter here. Now that we've seen the current meta and what the leaderboards are looking like now, we can kind of discuss why this is kind of happening and really what my thoughts are on how to fix it. So with the new update with having refinement and raising the gear level to +10, we were seeing a lot of changes with how we're able to stack our stats, and adding the second total damage or second total output, adding the boss damage, or even adding more specials on top of all our gear. We were able to see the full potential of what Thor was able to do, and being able to say add more crit rate or crit damage, and having a lot of these values altered on the crit side. We're seeing just kind of one set on what to kind of do. And I think with the new implementation of the forging, there was not enough testing done before it was released. So I'm thinking on how to fix it. Really, sure, we can always raise nightmare levels and stuff, but I do think we need to start slowing down on that regard and start working with what we have. So I think on the next, probably the bit is raising gear rating. And if we start raising the gear rating, we probably won't be able to raise the 60 to 70 to start. So just raising the rating at first will kind of do a couple things. That will change it to where people have to start farming for new gear. So a lot of us old vets that have saved up over the months, it'll make it to where everyone will have to farm new gear and be able to bring fresh blood into the higher ranks into these leaderboard runs. And then if you on top of that do kind of a full character change up on the numbers, definitely on Thor, to where you'll be able to alter his numbers quite a bit and to bring them back to normal. But to be able to change these other build numbers of, say, for example, a solo AR variant, be able to work with, say, the shrapnel shot, or the bigger hitbox radiuses where maybe we can clear things more, or even having fatal to be able to have that scale a little bit better on the long ranges. And that's just touching on the Punny side. For maybe Squirrel Girl, have her have more options of damage or different types of vulnerability, or things along those lines. Or I mean, that's if we were to change things, but if we were to alter things, just changing some of the specials to where some of those become more viable. You have, say, the vuln on Squirrel Girl now work with, say, the ground vuln of the 45%, try changing that up, or change the stun locking, or even the damage values of Squirrel Girl to where she can just have something that isn't just a vuln tank, essentially. Moon Knight, give him his flight back, give him his melee options. I mean, there's a couple things for Moon Knight. For Blade, get him just strictly out of that old, get him, you know, Gunblade, or Gunblade, essentially one of those two variants again. Let him be able to do something. And I mean, Jeff, just give anything to Jeff at this point. You know, he was a big boy at one point and doing some boss damage. Give him some boss damage. Give him some wave clear. You're having him eat all these enemies. Why not do something with that? Start altering these values to where these builds can start changing again. And then once you know, raise that gear rate, change these numbers again to where we can start having these numbers again, I think that will refresh the Blood Hunt experience. It'll get, you know, new players to these top ranks, bring new characters to these top ranks, and will bring new competition to Blood Hunt. Because, you know, at the end of the day, we're just speed running at these leaderboard times at, you know, at the bare end, when we're not, you know, trying out builds. And we need to be able to bring, you know, fresh faces in and kind of get the game mode going to the right direction. Because with this patch, they're definitely heading the right direction. They're adding, you know, more forging mechanics, new ways to expand our gear, and they're, you know, they're heading in the right direction. I think they need to keep pursuing this momentum and start adding these changes to where we can have more diversity in our character picks, because right now there's two, maybe three, four if you really want to, you know, say that you can do pub content. You know, you won't reach like rank 1 times, you'll be able to at least clear 300. But if we want like more variety in the rank 1 times, we need to start changing some of this stuff. So I think maybe starting off with that, or I'm sure they can think of way better than ideas than I possibly can. But if you at least start with something like that, build up upon it, I think, you know, Blood Hunt will be heading into a really good direction. But as it stands, it's just something has to change. But that will kind of wrap up all of my thoughts on everything, on what I'm kind of thinking with the new Nightmare 300. I think overall it's been a fantastic experience. I've been loving the build diversity with Punisher and all the different things that I get to try. I just think they need to fine-tune what they've got right now, and they're heading to a pretty bright future for Blood Hunt if this is something that they want to continue to expand down the line. Because, I mean, heck, they've already added 3 more months to it. If they want to make it a permanent feature, they've got the foundation for it, and I would really love to see them continue forward. But thanks for everyone for tuning in. What do y'all think on the patch? Is there something that I kind of missed, or maybe some input that y'all can provide me? Do any of y'all have clips of your own on your speedrun attempts or anything? Feel free to leave a comment down below. And I mean, I'm always taking information I'm getting from y'all, so anything that you can share with me, feel free to. Feel free to subscribe, like if you like the video, and if y'all liking this content, if you have something else that you'd like me to cover, feel free to drop that in the comments below, and we'll try to get some more videos going. But thank y'all for tuning in. I'll catch y'all later.